voting Donald Trump just is like voting another elite because he's literally a billionaire running for the office, and a normal average middle class person hates all these elites, hate all of these people who are like crony capitalists, who are the people with big money, billionaires, because they all got saved and they got big fat bonuses, right? So that was the anger. Why would they then choose another guy who's exactly like them in a different suit?
Right. So it's interesting because we look at Donald Trump today and we think that he's just one of the elite. He's no different, and his policies are really no different from that of another Republican, right? Why did he start this war in Iran? Why is he so supportive of Israel? He seems like another elite. But in 2016, he was revolutionary because he talked not like you and me, but like the average American.
Yeah.
He used simple words to describe deep emotions that captured the imagination of the American people. In 2016, people don't remember this, but in 2016, what people would go to Trump's rallies and they felt energized. They felt a tremendous sense of hope. And they were optimistic. They would go, and it was like a big pizza party. It was just a lot of fun. And Donald Trump was funny. He felt very human. He didn't speak in perfect paragraphs.
Yeah.
He didn't have a Brahmin accent like John Kerry. He felt like just the average American. And also, people don't remember, but Obama humiliated Donald Trump in, I believe it's 2011. I can't remember, but maybe 2011, there was the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and Barack Obama was speaking, and he made fun of Donald Trump. And Donald Trump was in the audience, and everyone was just laughing at Donald Trump. And Obama was angry at Donald Trump because Donald Trump led a campaign and accused Obama of being born in Kenya. And so therefore, he cannot qualify to be president of the United States. And obviously, if you're Obama, you're angry about this. And he took the opportunity, the White House Correspondents' Dinner, to just make fun of Donald Trump. And Donald Trump never went back to the White House Correspondents' Dinner again after that. He did go this year, but before he refused to go. And so the people can feel this animosity of the elite towards Donald Trump. Also, during the election, the entire news media was ganging up on Donald Trump. There was that Billy Bush scandal where Trump basically, in a private interview, said to Billy Bush, grab him by the pussy, right? And like before, in American politics, if you said something so crass and vulgar, you were done.
Done, yeah.
Yeah, you were forced to resign. He didn't do so. So the people saw a fighter. People saw someone like them, who talked like them, who thought like them, who felt like them. They also saw someone who was persecuted by the elite. And they saw someone who was a fighter, who would not give up. And so many have come to believe that he is the best hope for America. He's the Messiah. He's come to make America great again.
True. Do people still believe that?
Unfortunately, you have millions of people who still believe that. MAGA has become a cult. And so what's interesting is that during the presidency of Donald Trump, a new movement came into being called the QAnon movement. And we now know today, because of the Epstein files, that was actually orchestrated by Jeffrey Epstein and Steve Bannon. Okay, but what's the essence of the QAnon conspiracy? The idea is that, first of all, Washington, D.C. is run by pedophiles. It's run by these deep state sexual degenerates. And they control the entire deep state apparatus. They also believe that Donald Trump is a chosen one, the Messiah who's going to come in and clean house and make America great again. But to do so, he has to play 5-dimensional chess. He has to pretend to work with them so that he can eventually betray them and have the second American Revolution. And that was the QAnon conspiracy. And so what that did, and what's very clever, is it makes everyone question whether or not Donald Trump is playing five-dimensional chess, right?
Yeah.
So it's clear to most people that Donald Trump, by invading Iran, by supporting Israel, he's been co-opted by the deep state. And he is now a servant of the Zionist forces. It's pretty clear to people. But if you are deep in the QAnon conspiracy, if you're part of MAGA, in your head you think, no, this is five-dimensional chess. He's just fooling everyone. And at the right time, at the right moment, he will show his true colors, and we will all come together to overthrow the deep state pedophile network.
Do you believe so?
So what I do is I try to study historical patterns. And if you look at all these great individuals that have changed the course of human history, whether they're Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, Napoleon, they all came into power, or they were elevated into power because of elite forces. So let's use the example of Adolf Hitler. Most people don't know this, but we have a lot of documentation that suggests that he was, at the beginning of his career, a spy for the German army, okay? The White Mark. And the White Mark embedded Adolf Hitler into a new fringe political party called the National Socialists, the Nazis. And at this time in Germany, the 1920s, there was a whole range of radical revolutionary groups that the White Mark wanted to keep an eye on, but also wanted to co-opt. Because the White Mark, the German military elite, they wanted vengeance for World War I. They thought World War I was humiliating, and they wanted to change the status quo and avenge Germany's humiliation in World War I. So they were embedding all these spies into these fringe political groups in order to influence domestic politics in Germany. And Adolf Hitler was a military spy. And because he was receiving money from the military, he eventually became the leader of the Nazis, because the Nazis was just a very small French group with no real financing. And eventually, because of his personal charisma, because of his passion and belief, he started to accumulate more and more power. And there were four groups that supported his rise. They were the Catholic Church, the landowners, the industrialists, and the German military. And these four groups supported him because they were afraid of the communists. The communists were going to take over Germany democratically, and the right-wing elite, the oligarchs, had to provide an alternative to the communists. And these were the National Socialists, right? The communists were international socialists. The Nazis were national socialists. And so that's what propelled Hitler into power. Once Hitler was into power, he started to divide and conquer the elite. And the Nazi Party started to infiltrate these groups and become the government itself. And we're seeing a very similar process in America, where the elite, the Zionist elite, think that Donald Trump is a useful pawn in regime change in the Middle East, in changing the map of the Middle East to benefit America. But if you see what Donald Trump is doing domestically, Project 2025, they call it, it's very similar to what Hitler did, which is Hitler created these parallel organizations that eventually came to replace the government bureaucracy. So you look at, in America, ICE, right? That's almost like Trump's personal Gestapo. SS. So the real fear is that the longer Trump stays in power, the more Trump will bend the government to his will, in the same way that Hitler warped the German bureaucracy to his will. And so the big question for the world is, will Trump get a third term? And if he does get a third term, then he's going to be able to carry out his vision of revolutionizing the American bureaucracy and expanding the American empire.